All right, happy Monday. Welcome to Frontline, 6 o'clock here on the East Coast. We begin with the State Department celebrating a milestone in keeping Americans safe, announcing that it revoked more than 100,000 visas in 2025, more than double Biden's last year in office. Also, the leader of the seditious six, Mark Kelly, is filing a federal lawsuit against the War Department. He mistakenly called it the Defense Department. But Secretary Pete Hegseth, Navy Secretary John Phelan, and the Navy Department over his censure and coming reduction in retirement grade. We're going to have more on this later in the show. And remember when everybody was complaining about how Argentina borrowed $2.5 billion from a credit line with the United States? Well, it turns out Javier Milei's administration has already paid it back. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent calling it an American-first home run deal. But first, the libs, especially in Minnesota, are more worried about the money we're spending on ICE raids than they are about the $9 billion that was fraudulently sent back to al-Shabaab. Let's do this. You know, the craziest thing about these protests is that the same party that screamed about an insurrection are the ones actually participating in one now. The protests are devolving in Minnesota. And today, Trump declared another 1,000 ICE agents being deployed over there. And just minutes ago, the state's Attorney General, Keith Ellison, had an absolute hissy fit.
The deployment of thousands of armed, mass DHS agents to Minnesota has done our state serious harm. This is, in essence, a federal invasion of the Twin Cities and Minnesota, and it must stop.
Cry more. That was at a press conference where he then announced that he was suing to have federal law enforcement removed from Minnesota. This is going to be tossed out in like 7 seconds due to the supremacy clause. And Miss Somalia herself, Ilhan Omar, thinks that we shouldn't be spending our tax dollars on ICE agents.
I'm so exhausted in trying to ask what any of this, information has led to you finding any criminals that you have indicted that explains why you are wasting so much of our taxpayer resources and also terrorizing our communities in the amount of federal law enforcement agents that you have in the streets of our city and our state.
First time ever Democrats have tried to be fiscally conservative on anything. Not a word, though, about the money being stolen. No. We should just let that slide and just not use our tax dollars to stop it. I mean, this is the government fraud right here on your screen. Just in Minnesota, okay? I'm not even going to read it. There's so many of them. It's just so funny that none of them are like the John Smith Daycare Center. They're all called something weird, like this one, the Abdurzikrzak Ahmed Gayer and Ibram Agawat. My camera guy is laughing at me trying to pronounce these things. Okay, there's another one on there called the Quality Leering Center, as you remember. This is what Democrats are for, because they're clearly not against it. In fact, 4 Democrat states are suing to keep Somalians in their states. 19 Democrat states are suing to give sex changes to kids. 22 Democrat states suing to hide voter data from the federal government. 21 states suing to give SNAP benefits to illegals after saying that that doesn't happen. Anyway, all because of local leaders and people like Ilhan Omar out there telling ICE to get bent, and also this.
We are going to show all of them the door out.
Oh, ICE agents have the paid mob activated against them by activists like this weekend. ICE had to break the windows and rip people out of their car who were in fact under arrest for geo-targeting ICE agents during active investigations because 18 U.S. Code 119, the protection of individuals performing certain duties that, if informing the location of, could actually jeopardize the success of the mission. But the crazies are also ramping up the tax against people covering these riots and protests, just like they went after Nick Shirley and anyone else who started covering the fraud in the first place. Now the same crazies are going after people like Nick Sortor for covering them while they riot and assault ICE agents. Here's a guy, according to his profile, a U.S. veteran, that got awful aggressive. Here, you infer what you want.
All the right-wing propagandists harassing the of them. I'm talking tracking where they're at. They can't fight, so they'll have security, but that's fine.
They can't fight? You want to wager on that? I mean, I find this hilarious, considering this is the team. These people right here, these are the people that are out protesting. They're training to resist ICE. You're trying to rile up those guys? Okay, Mr. Super Veteran guy in your profile, congrats. You're the king of that pond right there. And then he had others smashing windows.
Get out of the car, Nick. You got a gun. Yeah, get out of the It ain't no gun, it's a little camera. He ain't got no gun, he's too Get out of the car, Nick. Hey, you do that again, I'm knocking you the out, Nick. I swear to God. Yeah, Andrew Mercado. Andrew Mercado, I'll knock you the out.
I mean, just a word of advice, don't confess on video with your name when you're threatening somebody, but send me down there, see if he gets away with that. And then when called out on it, he goes on Twitter to apologize, saying, oh, I should have not have lost my cool tonight, no matter how tough it gets. I'm sleep deprived, managing PTSD, very little food and water because federal agents murdered one of my fellow Minnesotans. Wah, cry more. You could go home and, like, I don't know, take a nap or get a bite to eat. You're out there by choice. And also, you claim to be a veteran. This drives me insane. Acting all tough. But from all available research we did today, you appear to have been in a support role, which is cool. I mean, there's nothing bad about that. However, you didn't see combat and you're playing tough guy while claiming PTSD. Dude, combat vets hate dudes like this. Playing the victim card when you're caught, super low, man. Get out. Which is why Nick Sortor told him to lawyer the F up. I recommend turning yourself into federal authorities before Harmeet Dillon gets a hold of this case and then probably arrest you. But as I said earlier, all this stuff going on, all the local police are literally doing nothing to quell this unrest, which by definition is in fact an insurrection from the party that had screamed about an insurrection since 2020. I mean, they're still trying to trot out that line. It wasn't even anything close to what's going on right now. Just in case there's some lib watching this show, and I know there is because I get your nasty emails all the time, the Insurrection Act of 1807, 10 U.S.C. 251 through 255, authorizes the President of the United States to deploy U.S. military forces, including regular armed forces and federalized National Guard units, domestically to suppress civil disorder, to enforce federal laws or state laws when they are obstructed. Now, this is the good part right here. It's the key exemption to the Posse Comitatus Act, which liberals always seem to know so much about, which generally prohibits, obviously, federal military involvement in civilian law enforcement. But there's three main scenarios here that Trump can take. And inevitably, some, local judge, some federal judge that was appointed by Obama will stop this in the middle of the night. But here they are, okay? Section 251, at the request of the state's legislature, urge governor to suppress an insurrection against the state's government, okay? That's not happening here. Okay, Section 252, when an insurrection or rebellion in any state makes it impractical to enforce federal laws through ordinary means. Yeah, this is the part that applies here. This part also is applicable when the state is not enforcing its own laws, which is here it's clearly not. And if they're not arresting people spitting on ICE agents, let alone fraud, let's not forget about the root cause here. Section 253, in cases that deprive people of constitutionally secured rights. Oh, you mean like journalists doing journalist things? You smash their windows while they're journalisming, it's bad. And to do all this, all that's requested by the president is required under Section 254 to issue and publish a presidential proclamation ordering the insurgents or those causing the unrest to disperse and cease their activities. Simple enough. Section 252 expressly allows this to be done in opposition to states that objections, and we've seen from like Tim Walz and Frey, he can just run them right over and just do it anyway. The act has been used, give or take, about 30 times historically. It's mostly in the civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s, but in 1992 in Los Angeles, those riots, that was the last time it was used, but the law hasn't changed. Oh, one more thing. Yes, this is good. I couldn't help but mention this while we're talking about, the law and stuff. Roll this. Look at this. Oh, whoa. Who's that? Oh, that's Timmy Walz, about 30 pounds heavier. He is signing the Minnesota Police Accountability Act into law in July 23rd, 2020. Now, this was all following George Floyd's death, amending Minnesota's authorized use of deadly force statutes, which, look, I know we're talking about ICE agents here, not his, but this is where his head was at. This pertains to peace officers and law enforcement. Okay, so I'm just thinking maybe we just hold law enforcement to the same standard as he wanted to hold his state people too. Clearly lining out deadly force. It says, quote, the use of deadly force is justified only if an objectively reasonable officer, which this guy seems to be, would believe, based on the totality of circumstances known to the officer at the time and without the benefit of hindsight, that such force is necessary. We've seen the video. Also, to protect the peace officer or law enforcement from death or great bodily harm, provided that the threat must be addressed through the use of deadly force without unreasonable delay. That applies here too. Or to effect the arrest or capture or prevent the escape of a person believed to have committed or attempted to commit a felony, and the officer reasonably believes that the person will cause death or great bodily harm to another person under the threat criteria include. I know these are federal agents, but Tim Walz signed that law, which is literally like covers everything this federal, and now he wants to charge him locally. I mean, can these idiots go home now, or were they just funded for another week? Nick Sortor is an independent journalist who was in that thick of that stuff last night. All right, who's this wannabe tough guy that was trying to punk you out first?
Yeah, well, Anthony Mercado has probably got some legal issues coming his way. I'll just say that much. My legal team has archived his entire live stream that he did that day, where over and over and over again, he threatened to, quote unquote, end me and was encouraging other people to end me. So, you know, we all know what that means. He was up at the window trying to be a big tough guy, and then he goes home, realizes that he's committed a federal felony, and decides to put out this half-assed apology blaming PTSD, which is exactly as you explained in this situation. It's a cop-out.
Yeah.
It's a cop-out.
Total
And it's not going to work. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, dude, you've been out there, like, getting this. Any local law enforcement, are they helping you out whatsoever?
I think I've called local law enforcement 3 or 4 times now, and I have never once, not even one time, been able to speak with a Minneapolis police officer. They either say, we're on our way, we're very busy. And I'm like, busy doing what? You're not responding to calls. I haven't seen a single officer out here. There are thousands of people. And, you know, when you're getting attacked in the streets and stuff in this place that you're standing, or that I'm standing right in front of, there's no fence around it, because they went out, and you can see a little bit of windows there. They broke out all the windows here the other night, and helpless people that are staying at this hotel, they thought it was an ICE hotel, but it's not. It was just innocent people staying in there, and police wouldn't respond for help.
Wait, so
and
and I want to get more on this. They're literally freezing water bottles, which amount to basically a brick, and they're throwing them. You know, abstract the irony there. They're throwing them through windows of privately owned hotels where no ICE agents are staying.
Yeah, correct. And I mean, terrifying the people on the inside, and they're not able to get anybody to respond, like police or anything. You can't get police out here to defend this innocent hotel with all these innocent people in it. I'm telling you, a lot of these people in these hotels got red-pilled over the past few days. But in terms of the water bottles, those are pre-positioned and pre-deployed to use as weapons. Those were frozen solid. It was like, if I tried to open that thing and drink out of it, even after several hours of them being there, I still wouldn't be able to do it. They are bricks, and they tried to put them through the window. The only reason they didn't make it through is because the headrest stopped them and bounced them back. If you get hit in the head with one of those, it's going to do some serious brain damage to you.
Yeah, well, I tell you, Nick, do not let up on this stuff. You're doing a great job out there. We're gonna stay in touch with you. Hopefully, you keep us posted.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Appreciate you covering it.
Thanks, brother. All right, John Chell, the former NYPD chief of department. John, in your entire career working as basically all of it in Manhattan and New York boroughs, have you ever seen such a lack of police response when people call?
Yeah, it's quite disturbing. And Nick just said he's not getting any service from Minneapolis Police Department. And I venture to say that that moronic mayor up there, Fry, is giving them the stand down order, and they're very limited to what they're going to do. They should have that complete city in lockdown. What do I mean by that? Law and order. People want to protest, do it properly. That's your First Amendment. You're not taking the streets. You're not throwing water bottles. You're not surrounding hotels. That should be in complete control of that department. It doesn't seem like it is right now.
Yeah. Well, you know, I read Tim Walz's definition of deadly force that he signed into law. By your analysis, this officer seems to be more justified than ever, and yet they're still talking about bringing local charges against a federal agent. Has this ever happened?
No, this is gaslighting on steroids from the Democrats. They don't care about this woman per se. This is all against Trump. And as far as that car goes, that is a deadly weapon. And if that officer thought he was going to die from that deadly weapon, then he meets that deadly force with deadly force. And that's what happened here. This woman was out there. She wasn't taking her kids to school, or Mayor Fry was saying she was doing a K-turn. Hey, Carl, when was the last time you did a K-turn you were dancing sideways?
Yeah,
I mean, it's unbelievable. So it's a tragedy, but she started these chain of events. And when you get hit by a car, what happened if he fell down and hit his head and died? Would she be charged with intentional murder, reckless murder? You better believe she would have been.
Yeah. Well, also his partner had his arms stuck in the car. He was being dragged. So I don't know. But the police chief, as you were mentioning, Brian O'Hara, blasting ICE last week for the shooting, calling it predictable and preventable. And I'm like, these people could just go home.
They are emboldened by the rhetoric coming from the left. The lieutenant governor, I believe the other day, said, put your body in harm's way.
Yeah.
In front of these Gestapos. This is created by the left. People are emboldened, and now someone lost their life for it. But this was a justified shooting. End of story. And they don't like that, but they don't realize, like I said, a car can hit you and kill you. It's a deadly weapon.
Yeah, no, it's all crazy to me. Well, Chief John Chell, we appreciate it very much. We'll get you on to continue following this.
My pleasure.
All right, coming up, President Trump is weighing action in Iran as hundreds are dead amid the nation's turmoil. We're going to get to that. But first, the Dems are screaming and crying and whining and saying they're going to shut down the government again. Can you guess why? Senator Markwayne Mullin going to drop bombs on this one next.
Charlie was the best of America, and the monster who attacked him was attacking our whole country.
Before Charlie Kirk died, he issued a stark warning of terrifying dangers ahead in a new book, Pagan Threat, authored by Pastor Lucas Miles. Charlie said Pagan Threat could save America and that you must read it. Get Pagan Threat free with Newsmax's special offer. Plus, get Dick Morse's new book, The Real Charlie Kirk. 2 great books with our free offer today.
Muscle cramps were keeping me up at night, so then I tried Slomag, the magnesium plus calcium supplement that helps relax tense muscles so I can rest comfortably. And Slomag tablets have a slow-release formula that's gentle on my stomach. That's why I use Slomag.
We're here with Chris Cunahan to talk about why Leaf Filter is the best choice for homeowners this season. Chris, why now?
If I'm investing in one thing this year, it's protecting my home. Clogged gutters cause big problems. Leaf Filter keeps your gutters clog-free year-round.
In any climate?
Absolutely. In blizzard condition, windstorms, downpours, Leaf Filter has you covered.
That's reassuring.
And it's backed by a lifetime transferable warranty. Schedule your free inspection today. Call 833-LEAF-FILTER or visit leaffilter.com.
Science didn't stop at diet and exercise. Why would you? Human science-backed supplements deliver effective blood pressure support and daily energy through better blood flow support. Because cardiovascular health is everything health. Only human.
Check their new game day fit. Oh, snap! DirecTV got hot.
That's right. DirecTV is flexing with all those pro and college games at your fingertips. This ain't your dad's cable, son. It's couture.
Okay, thank you so much. I was about to say that. It's couture.
This isn't your average pill. This is Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks is a fast-acting solution because it dissolves under your tongue.
Rose Sparks.
Guys, get started today.
Connect with a provider to find out if Rose Sparks are right for you.
Well, as we told you last week, 17 loser rhinos in the House caved to the Dems and voted to extend the Obamacare subsidies as another government shutdown is looming at the end of this month. Not long away. Trump telling reporters that if it gets to his desk, he may actually veto it, which I like, but it'll have to get through the Senate first. I mean, veto it, abolish it, do whatever you want because it's a waste. These subsidies are a waste of taxpayer money. Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin, I think one of the only sane people left in the Senate, sir. 17 GOP people vote to extend this, and their excuse was, well, we didn't have time to overhaul. You had 13 years.
Yeah, no, it's insane. And by the way, if I'm the sane one in the Senate, we might be in a mess. I mean, because you and I have had offline conversations. You know where my headspace is. But when you look at what's happened in the Senate, we've already voted for the 3-year extension. It was voted down. We all know in the Senate, and the Republicans that voted against this, not the Republicans that voted for it. The ones that voted for it, they're scared of their reelection. That's what this is all about, because their population base is wanting to do it. But the truth is, it's not good for the taxpayers. The taxpayers are going to subsidize these insurance companies to bring down their premium by only 4%. Now, mind you, healthcare and the exchanges have risen 3 times higher than the rate of inflation. So you see the amount that the rates are going up. Some of these premiums are going up by over 100%. Some are going up 250%, and you're talking about 4%. So at a cost of $13 billion, you're going to bring down premiums for 4% for a system that's broke. We have to redo it, and you're right. We've known since Obamacare was put in place, Carl, that it wasn't going to work for the American people, and now it's time to say, hey, let's get a system that actually works. Instead of having a community organizer draw up an insurance plan, let's put a business guy in place like President Trump and get healthcare working for the American people.
I know, because it's a 4% savings for 7% of the population, but 98% of the people on Obamacare need this subsidy. It's just so ridiculous to me. All right, get this. Democrat Kathleen Clark threatening another government shutdown, but this time she wants to completely defund ICE. Roll this.
We are going to use every single tool we have to rein in DHS, to make sure that the chaos and the terror that they are bringing to communities around the country is ended.
Senator, you got to work with people like this?
Well, unfortunately, I don't have to work with Caitlin Clark anymore, but let me just understand what she just said. She's saying exactly what the Democrat Party is saying, too. You have Ken Martin, who's the chair of the DNC, came out and compared the U.S. to Iran, and saying it's because of DHS. But yet what DHS is doing is actually enforcing our nation's laws. We don't have the privilege of picking and choosing which laws we are going to enforce. We have immigration policy that has been put in place. Actually, the last time it was fully overhauled was in 1959. And we've had multiple opportunities to make changes to it if we wanted to. The Democrats have been fully controlled of the Senate, the House, and the White House multiple times, and not one time have they ever actually went in and tried to redo the policies. But now we're asking DHS and ICE to go out there and enforce the nation's laws by saying we need to get these criminals off the streets, regardless of how long you've been in the country. If you broke the law coming into the country, you're still a criminal and you're still wanted. And they're going out there and doing that. And for her to not to do that and not wanting to enforce the laws, and why is she a lawmaker at all?
Yeah, exactly. Turns out, though, the House is actually they've agreed to fund $315 million for the National Endowment of Democracy, which is just some slush fund for libs. We're at $315 million. Does anybody read these bills before they vote on them?
I didn't know that, so you're breaking that to me too. We haven't voted on that in the Senate.
No,
but that's absolutely absurd. There's no reason for us to be funding these organizations. This is part of what DOJ was going after, was cutting this wasteful spending out of our budget, and that's exactly what that sounds like. That is.
My producer's going to kill me for asking this because we don't have a lot of time left. But you want to blow up the filibuster? Okay. Mike Lee also apparently on board with this. I was against this initially, but then, like you, I am like, yeah, you know what, just do it.
Well, you start researching this, and you realize when the Senate was first stood up, it didn't have this filibuster. In fact, it was a simple majority. It was until 1806 when they changed the previous rule and eliminated the simple majority and basically put in what we call today as filibuster. And then in 1917, they changed it again to 2/3, which is equivalent to 67 votes again. And then 1975, because of the dysfunction of government, they changed it again to in 1975 to the 60 vote threshold we have today. In fact, if you go through the history, 8 times since 1806, we've tried to get Congress or the Senate to working functionally again because of the rule change that was made in 1806. That shows that we've been trying to fix a problem, and the definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting different results. The Senate is dysfunctional because of the way that the filibuster is handled, and President Trump is absolutely correct.
Yeah.
We need to go back to what the original intent was, to a simple majority, and get legislation moving again.
Yeah, I would argue, sir, with the exception of you and a handful of others, it's dysfunctional because of politicians. But, you know, we're all here. So I think you should go back to, like, fighting on the floor, like when you almost fought that Teamster guy. That was, like, the highlight of my week. But, Senator, I got to leave it there.
All right, Carl. Good to see you, brother.
Good to see you, too. Coming up, it looks like Ma'am Danny's plans are failing. I love to say I told you so. In our culture, next.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.
Drop is finally here. Drop delivers the weight loss benefits of GLP-1 injections in easy-to-use oral drops, no needles.
That's right. The two big drawbacks with weight loss injections are high costs and weekly injections. Drop is flavorless and odorless, so you can just add it to water or your favorite beverage. Drop offers other advantages over injections too. With Drop, you can personalize your dosage based on your weight loss goals.
And because you add Drop to any liquid, there's no concern about injection site infections, bruising, or dosage confusion.
Drop is the easier, safer, cost-effective alternative to help you achieve your weight loss goals without the needles.
Can't find it anywhere? The Wellness Company has it. No consultation needed. Simply order online and use promo code SLIM to save $100. Visit dropthepounds.com/slim. That's promo code SLIM at dropthepounds.com/slim.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dried premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and they're gonna love it.
Do you have a yo-yo smile? Sometimes yellow, sometimes white. It's a constant battle between everyday stains and whitening treatments. Until now, get Smile Actives, the daily teeth whitening breakthrough that gives you a more youthful smile and helps you keep it.
At 43 years old, I don't mess around with products that waste my time. Smile Actives is easy, and it works. No gloopy trays, no messy strips. Just add a little bit on top of your toothpaste when you brush your teeth. And ta-da, white teeth.
Just add Smile Actives to your favorite toothpaste and watch the magic happen. Our patented Polyclean microfoam lifts away deep stains for a dramatically younger and whiter smile.
You have a choice. You can have those yellow teeth and just be old Nana or Pop-Pop, or you can be smiling and dazzling and full of confidence. I love my white teeth.
Scan, click, or call for your whitest smile yet. And if you order right now, we'll double your whitening free. Get an extra Smile Actives as our free gift to you, but only while supplies last.
I drink coffee every day. I started noticing that my teeth were not as bright as I'd like them to be, a little dingy, but Smile Active, it works. Got your boy gleaming.
100% of users saw whiter teeth. Smile Actives lifts away even the toughest stains from coffee, wine, and food, gently restoring your bright, youthful smile. Plus, it's safe for veneers, crowns, and dentures.
It's really a no-brainer if you want to whiten your teeth.
Clinically shown to brighten your teeth 5 shades whiter in just 7 days.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Act now. Get Smile Actives for just $24.95 and we'll double your order free. But hurry, this deal won't last. Smile Actives is guaranteed to work. Whiten your teeth or get your money back. No questions asked. Don't wait. Get Smile Actives for just $24.95 and we'll send you a second bottle absolutely free. That's free shipping, a free extra bottle. That's an incredible 58% savings. Scan the code, go to smileactives.com or call to get your beautiful whiter smile now.
Biden pardoned more people than in the history of pardons, so we don't need to get into the pardon game. With his auto pen, thousands of people.
Over 1,600 people, so he actually holds the record for them.
No,
He's
I think
only
Biden pardoned more than that.
No,
9,000 at least.
It was like 9,000, 10,000. Oh, if you count commutations, I guess, is what you're...
Okay, I'm talking about pardons. Trump pardoned...
Okay.
He's only been president the second time for 1 year.
At least Trump knows who he's pardoning.
Like
Biden didn't even know who he was pardoning.
And again, whoops. Yeah, you kind of make the CNN. Abby Phillips saying the Trump pardon more. Yeah, seriously, Biden granted clemency or pardoned more than 4,000 people, more than any other president in history. Alex Swoyer, Washington Times editor-at-large for Law and Politics, and Luke Ball, CEO of Compass Strategies. All right, so, Luke, the facts are the facts.
If you count how many pardons each president knew they were giving, I think that Donald Trump probably knew how many pardons he was giving out. If you include Joe Biden's staff, then maybe you get to that 6,000 to 9,000 to 10,000 number. I don't even think they know how many pardons that were given out. And unfortunately, probably not even how many bills were signed by his staff. Joe Biden has no clue what his legacy is going to be because he has no clue what was signed into law or what was pardoned under his behalf. So maybe we should give the credit to the staff members who are around him for giving out whatever the record is.
Yeah, exactly. Alex, the other thing, though, people, who love to lie, and at least Ma'am Danny knows what he's doing, or at least knows that he's conscious about what he's doing, keeps getting shut down. A federal judge has rejected his flagship policy and attempted to delay the bankruptcy sale of thousands of rent-stabilized apartments owned by Pinnacle Group, which is a real estate firm, who filed for bankruptcy after tenants complained that the seller failed to maintain the properties. 200 slumlord violations and stuff like that. But that's his token guy was this is the guy, this is how we're going to do it. And a judge just said, you can't do any of these things.
Yeah, it's an interesting legal question. For example, this was a bankruptcy lawsuit that they were trying to interview a bankruptcy judge. The sale that was happening between Pinnacle, you mentioned, and another group. Pinnacle actually owes the city, I think it's maybe 12 million, some sort of large number of fines. So it's contrary to what the mayor would want to try to intervene, slow down the sale for the city to be able to collect. If you have someone that owes you money, you want them to sell something, make money, and pay you back. So that's one kind of head scratcher. The other one, of course, is just the fact that, I'm a lawyer, I come from a legal background. This is something that's a sale. It doesn't have anything to do with his push for, rent control. The legal question at issue is unrelated to what his agenda is. And so it's just, the judge made the right call. It was also untimely. I think the sale's just about to happen, whereas the mayor could have intervened before when he was campaigning.
This is, the funny thing is this was his pride and joy was to do these rent stabilized things, and it's just so far not exactly the pace that he wants it. All right, Luke, Americans are not going to be ripped off by credit card companies anymore. Watch this.
They're paying 30%. The people out there, they're working, and they have no idea that they're paying 30%. No way. We're putting a 1-year cap at 10%, and that's it. They know it. They've really abused the public. The credit card companies have totally abused it. I'm not going to let it happen.
Look, I love the sentiment here, Luke, but I hesitate to have the federal government intervene in private sectors. When people get these credit cards, they might need them, but they do enter into that. How about capping student loans at 2% or something first?
There's so many different avenues for this. Credit card companies are some of the worst corporations on planet Earth. They prey on those who desperately need funds. And I believe that over the course of several years, it can get out of control wildly with these ridiculous interest rates. Yeah. I would hope that people would have enough sense not to sign up for these credit cards. None of the banks, none of the credit card companies have your interest in mind. And to channel my Dave Ramsey, I would say act your wage and spend on debit and cash is king.
Yeah, exactly. And, I have one credit card. So, look. Also, totally insane here, Alex. You're telling me that Representative Sarah McBride, the dude, is telling Trump not to pretend to be a cowboy. The iron, just watch.
I am demanding and ready to vote in favor of another war powers resolution to prevent further escalation and to guarantee that the United States doesn't invade Mexico or Greenland or any of these other countries that this president wants to play cowboy in.
She's playing a man, or a man playing a woman, or whatever.
Well, I'm from Texas. I love cowboys, so I'm kind of offended by this statement here. Maybe she could have used the word pirate. I don't know, something else. But one of the things that I think she's clearly, this woman is clearly missing is the fact that this is a national security issue. Going into Venezuela, looking at the oil, taking it back over. Obviously, after Exxon and ConocoPhillips, their assets were seized decades ago. U.S. going back in, rightfully claiming what is ours. Is for our America First agenda, and also a national security aspect with making sure that this funds, these oils, the money doesn't go back to Iran, back to Russia, where we're actually looking at trying to, make a peace deal with.
Everything you say sounds logical, but it escaped the person pretending to be a woman. Luke, Alex, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, Iran and its people have reached a boiling point, a big moment at hand for history as President Trump gathers input from his foreign policy team about what to do next, if anything at all. Our foreign policy panel is going to weigh in next.
I switched.
I switched.
I switched.
I switched to Newsmax.
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 Have you made the switch?
You bet I did. My whole family switched.
Millions are switching to Newsmax. You should too.
It's time to celebrate with Omaha Steaks end of season event. For a limited time, we're offering 50% off site-wide. That's 50% off all your favorites, like our Butcher's Classic Assortment, including our USDA certified tender filet mignon and top sirloin fillets, plus chicken, pork chops, desserts, and more, all for just $99.99. Plus, you'll get 8 burgers free when you visit omahasteaks.com/TV today.
Here we go again. Everyone wants to know. So here it is.
Melania, rated PG, exclusively in theaters January 30th.
Lock in 50% off for 1 year when you subscribe to the Whole Health System.
As we reflect on 2025, we want to say something simple and sincere. Thank you. For more than a decade, we've stood on the front lines defending our God-given rights, and we've done it with you by our side.
Thank you, Patriot Mobile.
Thank you, Patriot Mobile.
Thank you, Patriot Mobile.
Thank you, Patriot Mobile. Embrace Grace loves you.
Thank you to everyone at Patriot Mobile and for all of the amazing members that use their service. We are so thankful.
Thank you, Patriot Mobile. Thank you, Patriot Mobile.
Thank you, Patriot Mobile, and all of your clients and customers for your support of Alliance Defending Freedom. The work that we do to protect free speech and religious liberty, the sanctity of life, marriage, parental rights in this country and around the world.
Thank you, Patriot Mobile.
From all of us at Patriot Mobile, Happy New Year, and thank you for standing with us.
Buying a new car? You need WeatherTech. Perhaps a nice used car? You need WeatherTech. Or maybe you're still driving Old Faithful. You need WeatherTech. No matter the age of your vehicle, American-made WeatherTech products are the solution. Because Lexus don't care what year your vehicle is. See? You do need WeatherTech. Order your American-made protection at WT.com.
WSOP presents the NFL Poker Experience. Rep your team. Compete in exciting NFL tournaments and win exclusive NFL Poker Championship rings. Download the WSOP free-to-play app for a chance to win $1,000 towards your favorite team merchandise.
Have they crossed your red line yet to trigger a response?
Well, no, they're starting to, it looks like, and there seem to be some people killed that aren't supposed to be killed. These are violent, if you call them leaders, I don't know if they're leaders or just they rule through violence. But we're looking at it very seriously. The military is looking at it. And we're looking at some very strong options. We'll make a determination.
President Trump standing on business as the situation in Iran continues to escalate. A very violent and bloody weekend in the streets over there. Iran, as protesters, are trying to rise up and seize what they see as a potential moment to actually topple this regime that has been super oppressive. Former and senior advisor in Trump and Bush administrations, Christian Whiton, and senior director for Foundation for Defense of Democracy's Iran program, Behnam Ben Tabelu. Did I get that right?
Tabelu, close enough.
Tabelu, we got you. All right, cool. All right, so Christian, I'll go to you first on this one. I'm watching this. I'm thinking we should just sit back. They seem to be having their own little mini civil war. We should not get involved right now.
Well, I think we have a compelling national interest to make trouble for this regime. It's not just another in a dozen or 2 dozen or 3 dozen repressive, problematic governments around the world. This one is a biggie. It's killed thousands of Americans over the year. It came to power, this Islamist theocracy, by taking American diplomats hostage, killed a lot of our Marines in Beirut, killed untold number of Americans, soldiers, civilians in Iraq and around the world. So we sort of owe them. We should want this regime to run into trouble. I don't think it's nation building to do so, but our capabilities to act are limited. The CIA is out of the business of political warfare unless it's against the Republican government here in the U.S. So there are, a finite amount of things we can do, but I think certainly being on the side of the protesters is a good thing to be.
Yeah. Behnam, the other thing, too, is this has been a long time coming, okay? There's been massive oppression. Now, the same types of people, though, who cheered in the current leadership, 30, 50 years ago, those same people are the ones that got oppressed the most. So it's like, is there any real solution in an area that's this volatile?
Well, yeah, there really is only one solution, which is to flip the script on the Islamic Republic. I would actually take umbrage with the analogy that it's the same people who were bringing in the revolution that are the ones doing it today. These are the second, third generation that suffered because of the sins of their parents and grandparents, who, by the way, ousted somebody who, compared to every other Middle Eastern autocrat, looks like St. Francis of Assisi. Oh, and by the way, when that somebody was in power there, the Middle East was a heck of a lot more stable, a heck of a lot more prosperous, and there was a real U.S.-Iran relationship that was grounded in security and principles, and there was a real Israel-Iran relationship that was grounded in security and grounded in principles. And listen, if you're listening to the chants of the protesters, it's all about finding a way to put Iran first, make Iran great again. I think they deserve our support because they got their sights set on a regime that quite literally has a bounty on the head of the U.S. president. This regime has issued multiple fatwas calling for the killing of President Trump, the confiscation of his property, and the taking of his family and his daughters. I don't think we should really be letting that stand. Foreign policy is not missionary work, as Henry Kissinger used to say. It is not missionary work to put Tehran's theocrats out of business.
Having been in and out of Iraq for almost 9 years, I'm cautiously optimistic about this, but I know that region has not some of the most stable things in governance. Let's go over to L.A., Christian. A person drove a U-Haul truck down a street while these people were protesting to overthrow the Iranian regime in L.A., though. And somebody who is pro-current Iranian regime, apparently, as we know now, we're assuming, took this U-Haul, just ran a bunch of people over.
Yeah, it's very shocking, and it's a reminder that Iran does have operatives around the world who are exporting terrorism, committing, acts up to and including murder. In the 2010s, they were caught colluding with someone they thought was a hitman who was going to stage a mass casualty attack against an ambassador accredited to the United States in Washington. This Iranian operative was fine with plenty of collateral damage, dead Americans everywhere. So this is a government that's not just looking to have theocratic tyranny at home. This is a government that wants to upend other governments, especially democracies and our allies in the Gulf, especially Israel. They'd love to annihilate Israel and have another Holocaust in the twinkling of an eye in Tel Aviv with a nuclear weapon. So, bad guys.
Real quick, Ben, the Lindsey Graham, though, is urging Donald Trump to kill the leadership. I mean, he's never met a war he doesn't like.
Well, I would say actually it's better not to replicate the Maduro model with respect to Iran. First and foremost, you got to kind of work your way up there right now. Unless you're going to nest that policy into a larger U.S. strategy, I would say there's significant room for improvement both on the kinetic side as well as on the non-kinetic side when it comes to U.S. policy towards Iran. I mean, just take a very quick look at what's going on the street right now. They're using military-grade equipment to jam Starlink satellites. Perhaps that's where the bulk of military attention in the short term should be focused.
No, excellent. Christian, Behnam, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, federal prosecutors just launched a criminal probe into Fed Chair Jerome Powell over his sworn testimony that the bloated $2.5 billion Fed headquarters renovation fiasco. Next.
Hi, I'm Ben Cozy. Isn't traveling a pain in the neck? You're cramped, uncomfortable, and forget about getting any rest. There's nothing cozy about airplane seats or hard plastic benches, and those so-called travel pillows, they just don't cut it. You don't need another travel pillow. You need Be Cozy, the world's most comfortable neck pillow. Trapped in the middle seat? Wrap Be Cozy around your neck to stop chin drop, bobblehead napping. Smashed up against the window? Fold Be Cozy over and tuck it onto your shoulder for super side support. Frequent flyer miles got you sitting aisle? Turn Be Cozy to the side for the perfect pillow position. Everyone wants to be cozy, so get the world's most comfortable travel neck pillow and be cozy just like me, Ben Cozy. You get to be cozy. Everyone gets a Be Cozy. Only Be Cozy has patented overlapping arms so you get double support and the comfort you need in any seat on any trip. Go online right now and get this exclusive TV offer. Buy one Be Cozy, get one 50% off. Get yours now.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
I'm Guy Fieri, and I'm asking for your help in supporting the Tunnel to Towers Foundation as it continues to pay off the mortgages for fallen first responders and Gold Star families who have died in the line of duty and left behind young children. Not only that, but they are also building mortgage-free smart homes for catastrophically injured service members and have recently committed to eradicating homelessness amongst our veterans. We ask you to join us on our mission to do good. Go to T2T.org and donate today.
My heart has experienced life-changing wins, losses, and countless miles. To keep living at my speed, I trust Cunol CoQ10. CoQ10 is the #1 cardiologist-recommended supplement for heart health. Cunol, the brand I trust.
JB Smoove, what are you doing here? I'm always here. I know what you're doing here, though. A consumer cellular commercial. You know, we should get you signed up. Aren't I too young? We got deals for people over 50. That sounds great. Sign me up. Make it happen, Teddy. Right now, get your second month free. Call Consumer Cellular.
Oh, the Fed. I hate that place. Trump's DOJ, though, has opened a criminal investigation into the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell over his Senate testimony last summer where he was defending the $2.5 billion with a B dollar renovation for a federal building that shouldn't even exist. And of course, right on cue, Powell claims that subpoenas are actually about politics. Watch this.
The threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public, rather than following the preferences of the president. This is about whether the Fed will be able to continue to set interest rates based on evidence and economic conditions, or whether instead monetary policy will be directed by political pressure or intimidation.
I hate you, I hate the Fed, and I want to abolish all of it. Attorney at Judicial Watch and author of the fantastic book Defiant, Christina Bobb. All right. My short question is, how do we get rid of the Fed? Second question, how do we lock this guy up?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think that should be COA #1. The fact that he is offended that he got subpoenaed after they went about $1 billion over budget.
Just $1 billion.
Just $1 billion is laughable. especially in light of all of the fraud out of Minnesota, and we're uncovering a lot of fraud across the country. I think it's appropriate to open a fraud investigation to determine whether there's fraud at the Fed. So I think this falls right in line. It doesn't actually strike me as that political, but you know.
I mean, that's crazy. Like, I work in Manhattan, okay? There is like 2 blocks that way, okay? The JP Morgan Chase just put up this 60-story building, 2.5 million square foot global headquarters. Look, they said it costs like $3 billion. It has an indoor flag that like blows with the direction of the wind outdoors. And it's got half of the Chase headquarters. Like, the new Fed building is not even half that size, and it doesn't have a fancy flag.
Yeah, it sure looks suspicious, doesn't it? And, you know, leave it to the federal government to completely waste our funds. And just because they're wasteful, or just because they, you know, aren't using the dollars the best way possible, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's fraud. And so this criminal investigation, I think, is very appropriate to determine, is it stupidity or is it actual fraud? And Jerome Powell's response to me is somewhat fishy, because like, why are you afraid of the questions? If there's no fraud, if there's nothing to be worried about, you are a federal executive, answer the questions.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm curious to see what they do with it.
Me too, but it's not federal, nor does it have anything in reserve, so get rid of it.
Right.
All right, let's talk about Arctic frost, this debacle.
Yes.
Disgraced former special counsel Jack Smith. Turns out his team approved a $20,000 payment to an informant to snitch on the Trump team because they didn't have anything else to go on. This is not investigating. This is a fishing expedition.
Yeah, it's a fishing expedition, or worse. They are manufacturing a crime where they intentionally know a crime doesn't exist. This is particularly close to me, as I'm part of the Arctic frost investigation, and I'm still a criminal defendant as a result of the Arctic frost investigation. So this has very wide-reaching consequences. There are several cases still open for the state electors, which this could play into, because that was the whole point of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the evidence even said, you know, we'd like to have Donald Trump involved, but we can't reach that far. So, you know, let's just get the people close to him, those around him, whether they're senators, elected officials, or the electors, or his attorneys or allies. Let's try to muddy the water as much as we can, and that's what they did. That's what they're still doing. That's what they continue to do.
Yeah.
And this demonstrates that the whole thing was manufactured. None of it was authentic.
Pam Pondy, throw someone in jail. It's so frustrating. Whatever. We did hear some rumor mill that maybe potentially Trump might be tiring with our inaction, so I'm hoping to see what happens there. All right, Senator Kelly, you are a former JAG, so you get this. He's suing Pete Hegseth civilly and also in federal court, and the Trump administration and the Secretary of the Navy and the Pentagon. I mean, just throwing darts at the wall to see what sticks. But I don't think he's got a case here. I mean, I'm not a lawyer. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. He's seeking declaratory judgment from a judge in D.C. to tell Secretary Hegseth that he's not allowed to do what he has not yet done. So we haven't seen what Hegseth is going to do.
Right.
What he's announced is that he is going to look into potentially demoting Senator Kelly from his retirement rank and decreasing his retirement pay, which the UCMJ, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, allows the Secretary of Defense to do that. So Kelly's trying to preempt that by getting a liberal D.C. judge to say, hey, Secretary Hegseth, you're not allowed to do whatever you're thinking about doing that you haven't actually done yet. So I think it's premature. I think he's trying to get ahead of something that hasn't happened. And it shouldn't work, but this is D.C. in 2026, and who the heck knows?
Mark Kelly shouldn't need all that money. He had that spy balloon company that was funded by the Chinese, so he should have tons of cash. Christina, Bobb, we appreciate it.
Thanks, Carl.
All right, before we go, more Somali fraud. You don't say. The depths that some are willing to go to exploit actual victims of a tragedy and how they got that money.
The press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
And now here's Chris Cunahan with the Leaf Filter Gutter Report and what changing weather conditions can mean for your home. Chris?
Our patented leaf filter technology keeps your gutters clog-free year-round. No matter where you live, no matter the climate. Locally trained professionals will clean, repair, and install the Leaf Filter Gutter Protection System. Leaf Filter guarantees clog-free gutters for the life of your home. Schedule your free inspection today. Call 833-LEAF-FILTER or visit leaffilter.com.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, the 91-year-old formulator of Immuno 150, an incredible nutritional supplement. There's nothing like it. Now, Immuno 150 is different because it contains 70 plant-derived minerals and 80 other nutrients. Dr. Linus Pauling, known for vitamin C, was instrumental in convincing me to get into the mineral business in 1983. He said the world is sick due to a lack of minerals in topsoil. He said the body needs 60 minerals, but the average food and supplement has no more than 12. That's the reason for Immuno 150. Since its inception, it's had a powerful impact on the lives of thousands of people who could not get any help from various supplements they took or their doctor. Now, I suggest you try Immuno 150 to see what 70 minerals, CoQ10, and 80 nutrients can do for you. Look at the videos on our website. Millions have. Now, consider placing an order for Immuno 150 online or call our toll-free number. I know you'll be glad you did.
I'm a martial artist, a skydiver, a pilot, and all of them require your feet to work. Get up in the morning and it felt like I was standing on marbles on my heel. When I went into the Good Feet store, the fitting was personalized. It was all about me. You put in the arch supports and your day becomes better and the sun shines, the unicorns run by, and you know, it's a good life. I'm Randy and that's my Good Feet story.
See for yourself with a free personalized arch support fitting at the Good Feet store.
This isn't your average pill. This is Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks is a fast-acting solution because it dissolves under your tongue.
Rose Sparks.
Guys, get started today.
Connect with a provider to find out if Rose Sparks are right for you.
It's not just your hearing. For us, it's your life. That's why we created the Miracle Ear Way, offering unlimited care, including risk-free trials and free servicing to keep you connected with your loved ones at all times. Call 1-800-503-7789.
Are you or a loved one a military veteran that has been diagnosed with mesothelioma? Do you have questions about getting the best treatment or paying medical bills? Have you received the proper care and compensation you deserve? Let our firm serve you with the same dedication you served your country. We are exclusively devoted to helping those with mesothelioma. Call now to get this free book, and we'll answer any question you have. We'll even visit you.
Call 800-555-8958 or go to mesobook.com.
Don't kibble your dog.
Oh, hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, Matt.
But what's wrong with this? It's premium stuff.
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means it's ultra-processed at extremely high temperatures that destroy the nutrients in the food. But at Dr. Marty, we gently freeze-dried premium meats, fruit, and vegetables, locking in their nutrients.
Never kibbled.
You got it, kid, and they're gonna love it.
All right, we began tonight going down the fraud thing with plaguing the Somali population in Minnesota. But as we've said on a number of occasions, the problem is literally everywhere. Take this example from Maine. October 23, crazy man opens fire at Lewiston bowling alley, killing 18 and wounding 13. In response, the Maine community, the foundation, establishes a fund that would send all the donations to the survivors and their families. But they didn't. Nearly $2 million went to 29 nonprofit groups, several of which serve only immigrant communities like the Somali Bantu Community Association, Generation Noor, and Gateway Community Services in Maine. The same group we told you about recently, whose founder, Abdullah Ali, left Maine to run for president of the Somali state of Jubaland. That's actually a real place. If this wasn't bad enough, Imam Osman, the Somali refugee and newly elected Lewiston City Council member, resigned just days after winning his seat. Why? Well, his nonprofit, the Lewiston Auburn Youth Network, received $65,000 from the fund for victims. Weird. I'm not sure that's a coincidence. Dude, these people are incapable of being on the up and up.
Did you see Margaret Brennan on CBS this weekend with Ilhan Omar just feeding into the narrative that there's really not any fraud in Minneapolis? That they looked at it and there really wasn't much there. My mind was blown by that comment. We're gonna
how do you do that?
It's a surreal time.
Whatever.
Yeah. And Tim Walz just resigned for no reason, I guess. Good to see you, Carl.